thank you for saying yes. Awesome. So welcome everyone. Welcome Priya. Welcome Jessica. I'm so excited about this event that we've been planning for some times now. We didn't really know if we were going to be able to do it, but it's here, it's happening. And we actually met on Instagram, Jessica, which is amazing because the women's health community and people advocating for women's health in general, the community on Instagram is really great. And I met Priya through her institution. We are the Cycle India that I also met on Instagram. And we are here with women from, the US, France, India, around this platform, connected through endometriosis. So first of all, I'll share very quickly about Ninti, who we are, what we do. So the journey of Ninti started with our personal journey with Olga and I, my co-founder, last year. So we offer education, tailored healthcare support by connecting women to specialists and guiding them through awareness and educative programs. We also support employers by helping them better support their employees. We believe that we need to bring fertility, menopause, endometriosis, women's health in general in the workplace and put it as a, as a priority so that we are able to live the lives and get the care we deserve. So before we move forward, I would really want to say a big thank you to Priya and Jessica for joining us and sharing their stories with us. We will start by a conversation with Jessica. We have a bunch of questions that we will ask you, and it's really, we are here to share our stories. So there's no, I would say, practitioner or medical expert. We are not doctors ourselves. Every story is very unique. So the idea is by allowing and creating the space to share our stories that other members of this community right now on the call also allow themselves and share their story either through the chat, or you can raise your hand and I can unmute you. So after that conversation with Jessica, we will be having a conversation with Priya, that is our special guest, and she will be sharing about the work that her incredible organization, We Are the Cycle in India, is doing to end menstrual poverty in India, and also the work that they've been doing on endometriosis in general. So let's start. Before we move forward, I have this amazing book, Know Your Endo. And if you don't know this book, I really invite you all. I will share it in the resources in the thank you email. But I really invite you all to get it because Jessica is sharing plenty of amazing resources for all of us.
Basically, somebody tried to do something.
Yeah.
Come.
Can you mute yourself in case you're not invited to, I don't know who is. Okay, good. Thank you. Sorry about that. So where do we start? So first of all, Jessica, how are you feeling? How is everything?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm doing good. Yeah.
Okay. Great. So I've been reading your book. Thank you so much. And I have so many questions. I know that we only have an hour. I wish we had more. And this is a virtual event, but I also, we really want you all to feel comfortable enough to also share your stories in the chat and ask questions. And what we are going to start with is, so when reading your story, I realized that there were many ways that endometriosis started in your life. So there is this anecdote with your mom's having symptoms and never knowing that she had endometriosis, and you being aware of your symptoms. So I would love to hear if you could share how you really connected to your symptoms. When did you felt that there was something happening in your body and you felt like you needed to seek help? And can you share a little bit as well about your diagnosis process? For example, in France, being diagnosed with endometriosis, before you get your the time of the diagnosis and your painful symptoms, it can happen in 7 years. So it's really a very long time. And I would love to hear, we are also from different countries here, your journey in the US and how you navigated this entire diagnosis part.
Yeah, well, the US is 7 to 10 years, so it's even longer here. Yeah. You know, it's so crazy because I think that because of events like this and because of your organization, that we are now so much more aware of symptoms. But I didn't know that there was anything wrong with me until it just hit the bottom of having cyst rupture multiple times, and even then no one really took me seriously. So it's such a tricky question for me to think about when I connected symptoms to when something was wrong, because I didn't know there was something that was wrong, because my normal was pain, my normal was being uncomfortable every day. So it really wasn't until I had multiple cyst bursts, multiple times to the ER, still not sure what was wrong, that they sent me to a gynecologist. No, they actually just sent me to a general doctor that then suggested me to a gynecologist. And I mean, that was probably my 10th or 12th doctor, you know, and she said, you might have something called endometriosis, which wasn't even listening at the time. You know, I was like, let's just get into surgery. And what was supposed to be a quick outpatient surgery ended up being an 8-hour surgery where there was some very serious things wrong. And waking up and hearing that I had endo, I mean, again, I really wasn't listening in the appointment. It was the first time I had heard that word before. So there really wasn't a connection to my symptoms because I was just living with them every day and I thought it was normal.
Mm-hmm. And I love the part where you share about your mom journey.
Mm-hmm.
How did she react when you...
Well, my mom has called and left me about 20 crying messages about how much the book has not only felt compassion for my sister and I, but in a way, I think she felt seen by me writing about her, because again, like just my generation, you even go further back another generation. And I mean, she had never heard the word before. I mean, you weren't even allowed to talk about periods on commercials. So I think it was really validating for her to see that. And also just, I don't know, I think she had more compassion for herself as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I'm from Guinea, West Africa. I'm born, raised there. I moved to France a few years ago, actually 15 years ago. So I'm as French as Guinean now. And I remember that for most of when I had my periods, I really felt like it was something I needed to hide and be ashamed of. And when I used to have pain, I just felt like it was normal. Mm-hmm. It was normal to suffer and normal to have pain. And I want to know, what was your relationship with your pain during this time?
I would say prior to diagnosis, just normal, every day. It sucked, you know, I mean, and I think too, in the book, and I think, you know, if people aren't familiar with all the endometriosis symptoms, so many of them are not connected to our period. So, you know, I talk a lot in the book about peeing my pants a lot, or having urinary problems, having tons of GI issues. And so it just felt like at all times I felt uncomfortable in my body, and that maybe that's just the way my body was. So I think I also got really good. I mean, I think probably similar to you when you were having your period, not just even on my period, you get very good at hiding your symptoms. So, you know, not wanting to deceive anyone, but, you know, not being able to go to a party because you have something else going on, or you have to work, or I think I got really good at convincing others that I was okay. And then in some way trying to convince myself I was okay too. And that was always, I think, a little bit of a dance that I had in my head, that maybe if I didn't work out as hard, I wouldn't be as tired, or maybe if I drank more water, I would have a better bladder health. It was a lot of blame too, I think.
Mm-hmm. And how did it impact your relationship in general?
Relationships with people in my life?
Yeah, or
Yeah, I mean,
social life and yeah.
it was, again, I did a good job at hiding things, but I remember that, when I got diagnosed, I definitely didn't get better. And you'll see, you read in the book, it wasn't until really 10 years after diagnosis that I started to learn to manage my symptoms. But once I started managing my symptoms, I remember a friend of mine came up to me and he said, "You're like a lot nicer now." And I think that we don't realize sometimes how much our pain changes our personality, changes our outlook on life. And as much as we think that we're hiding it, I think the people in our lives can see that we're unhappy. And they might just think that we're grouchy or had a bad day, when really I think it's this deep physical pain that is so normalized that it changes us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it made me think of a point that you mentioned as well in the book that I felt was really interesting, and it's something that I'm still struggling with right now, is how at some point, we disconnected this emotional and physical part, and we can feel pain, but we need to try to feel good and try to feel okay, because we are in societies that are requesting from us to deliver in so many different ways. So how did you not manage, because it's not the right word, how did you align yourself between your mental and your physical health?
Oh,
I'm pretty sure it didn't happen in a few days. It probably happened in years, but I would love to hear your journey and the connection between those two parts.
I mean, I think that I think in social media culture, or just wellness culture in general, I think that we're pushed, like meditation is pushed on us, and all of these things are pushed on us that I did not connect to at all. Like, I tried to meditate a million times, and you'll see in the book, if you read the book, there's actually some research that's been done that if people have been through a lot of trauma, physical trauma, emotional trauma, meditation, breath-based meditation can actually make you feel more anxious. So it wasn't for me. So I think that I had to find mental health tools that did help me. I mean, I definitely think, you can go to therapy all day long, but you can't be in the room all day long, like, living in that room with the therapist. And sometimes when you're in serious pain, it's kind of like a FU to the therapist when they're like, well, just, try to, it's like, no, you don't know what this feels like. So I think that finding tools like grounding, I talk about grounding in the book. I think doing not breath-based meditation, but more of a walking meditation. And even that is not even a meditation, really. It's just walking and looking around and not having headphones on with a podcast or something. I think that self-compassion, and again, it sounds kind of yoga woo-woo, but self-compassion is just truly telling yourself that it's going to be okay. That has helped me so much in terms of managing that mental health aspect, because in the intro of the book, and I think a lot of people with endo have felt this, that I didn't necessarily want to die, but I certainly did not want to be alive with the pain that I was living with. So it's a really complicated mental health struggle that I think that we have, because we feel like we might have great friends or a great job or a great partner, but like we're still really sad because of our pain.
Yeah, wow. You'll make me cry now. Just to let you know, we cry a lot with Jessica on calls. But yeah. And what do you mean by self-compassion?
So I didn't make up this concept. It's something Dr. Kristen Neff, and I encourage everyone to read her book. I kind of summarized it well in my book, so if that's helpful to someone, if you don't want to read her book. But it's really just, it's not standing in front of the mirror and saying, I'm so beautiful, I'm so great, because I think a lot of, again, therapists are telling us to do that. A good example is waking up feeling extremely bloated or in pain and saying to yourself, what can I do for you right now? instead of saying, oh, maybe I ate too many this, maybe I'm not taking care of myself enough. It's flipping it and saying, what can I do for you right now? And maybe that's choosing a very loose pair of underwear. Maybe that's canceling a meeting that you have. And what happens is, and again, there's research to back this up, is that we're shifting what our brain is thinking and how it takes care of us. Because I think with endo, we get very good at catastrophizing situations. And so, I'll give you an example of that too. So you might have a little pain, right, down in your pelvic area. And then you think, oh my gosh, what if a cyst is bursting? Okay, well, then that means I have to go to the ER. And then that means I might have to take off work. And then that means, so we just spiral into this worst case scenario when maybe to another person that had a little pain, they're like, oh, well, I've got a little pain today. I'm going to move through it, move on. Because we're so used to it going to worst case scenarios, our brain just goes there. So I think with self-compassion, it sort of blocks that a little bit and says, okay, stop. What can I do for you right now? And I'm telling you, it's not going to take all your pain away, but it can really just help you get out of bed sometimes and just be able to live a little bit better.
Yeah, I definitely resonate. And on a different note, it did help me going through my journey of grief and loss, and what I sometimes picture myself doing, which really works for me, may not work for you, is really hugging myself and touching myself.
Yes, yeah.
And it's just,
it's really, that's
really silly to say that, but it does work, sending positive signals to ourselves that no one else can, because it's also very complicated for others to feel the pain we can feel, and they may not even ever feel the pain we are feeling. So really, Andrea is sharing that the blame piece is something she relates with. Lauren, I always tried to hide and normalize my symptoms, and docs affirmed that by saying my GI symptoms were from being too stressed and period pain was just a normal part of being a woman. Padme says, amen. Amen. Yes to the more comfortable undies, such good self-care for us Pringles, from Catherine. Yeah, definitely.
And no underwear at all. If you're not on your period, just don't wear underwear. I don't wear underwear most days, which if my sister's on this, she's probably like, why did you just say that? But sometimes underwear just does not feel comfortable. You don't have to wear it. If you're on your period, obviously it's for the best, but don't do it. You don't have to.
Yeah, and another big thing another thing that there's so many things that I want to share, and I'm being mindful of time, but you talk about food a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I have something with food, because I have moments where, I'm trying to really take care of my food, and I have PCOS. So I'm like, okay, I need to have veggies and this and that, get rid of sugar. And on the other hand, sometimes I'm just having huge cravings and I'm just depressed, and I'm like, I just want to eat fried chicken today. And don't judge me. So how would you explain your relationship with food, and how are you making it? Because you have those recipes that I love, but how are you making it consistent in your daily life? Is it something that you're doing on a very daily basis, or it's something that you're doing based on your cycle? Can you share more?
Yeah, I think that's such a great question, because I feel like if you want to have the fried chicken, have the fried chicken. I don't think it has to be so black and white, this is it. I think that everyone finds the tool that works best for them. And I think that in the beginning of starting to manage my endo symptoms, food was the thing that I found was the biggest change for me. And I think that, I also ate pretty much candy, Diet Coke, and pizza as a diet. So I think any amount of vegetables would have helped me feel better. But I think, I don't like the wellness concept of you have to eat all plant-based, you have to be keto, you have to be this. I do think it's a personal choice. And I think that there is evidence to show that an anti or lower inflammatory diet can help an inflammatory condition. So yeah, I do it on a daily basis. I mean, if I'm at a party and there's a piece of vegan cake, like I'm probably going to eat that piece of vegan cake. And I sort of think about, okay, so my period is tomorrow. How is this cake going to make me feel? And sometimes I do adjust to suit when my period is coming, because I do notice for myself when I do have the bigger inflammatories, I have more GI issues. I mean, we've all experienced a painful period poop. Like that is like the worst feeling in the world. And so I try to limit those things as much as I can, because for me, I notice that's what helps me the most. For other people, they could probably drink wine and eat gluten all day and not have a huge impact. But for my personal body, I notice a huge impact. So, in getting into that diet or that lifestyle, it was very hard. It sucked at the beginning. I was very, very mad because I felt like Endo was again limiting me in a way. It was limiting my diet. But after I started doing it, I found things I actually liked that were healthy. I found that I could make a lot of my favorite meals plant-based. And then I found, okay, so feeling good feels like it's way more worth it than eating a Snickers or whatever the thing that was that I was eating at the time. And I'm telling you, I was eating candy every day. So it wasn't like it was a little candy here and there. It was every day.
I live in Paris under a bakery. It's the worst.
Although I will say, whenever I have gone to Paris, the bread hurts my stomach way less than it does in the US. And I've heard that from so many people. I'm sure people in the chat can confirm that. But yeah, I mean, you'll see in the book that my approach to food, I call it good food. And good food is food that doesn't make you feel bad. And your good food might be completely different than my good food. And I just think it's important to at least start to connect what those good foods are, and then you can choose to eat them or not.
Yeah, definitely. And okay, yeah, I had a question. I mean, I'll ask it. What has been the hardest piece for you within the journey?
Gosh, I think that the hardest piece for me is body image. I think that, and it really wasn't until I wrote my book that, let me tell you, people think that books are so cathartic and amazing, but they can also put you in a very dark place because you start to discover things about yourself that you didn't realize. But, I've always had really bad body image and body dysmorphia and just a lot of sensitivity around the way my reflection in the mirror. And writing the book really made me realize its connection to Endo. And I think that when someone asks you if you're pregnant, like every other day, because you're so bloated and you actually don't feel physically comfortable in your body and pants don't fit and you weigh a certain amount, yet you're wearing this size and apparently that's a wrong, it really can mess with your head. And so I didn't really connect my body image issues to Endo until I wrote my book. And that was sort of for me. So I think aside from the cramps and the pain and the GI, it's really the body stuff that has impacted me the most. Because that's there even when you're not on your period.
And what advice would you give? I mean, what would you like to share? Because all experiences are very unique and we are from different countries as well, where you live, the kind of access in terms of mental health or in terms of physical health that you have access to is very different as well. But if there was one knowledge that you wish you had very early on and that you wish we should amplify, what would it be?
I mean, I think, and this is not to promote my book, but just the concept of knowing your endo. I just think that knowing all of the symptoms, I mean, this will be the part that makes me cry, but like being able to look at a list of symptoms, and in my book, I list all the symptoms, and then I ask you to circle the ones you have, and then how have those symptoms impacted your day-to-day life? Like maybe your biggest symptom is GI issues, and you just thought that you ate too much or you have bad stomach things, when really it was the endo that was doing that to you. So I think really knowing your symptoms, and then by knowing your symptoms, you will be able to advocate for yourself so much better, because that's the thing I didn't know. I didn't know all the symptoms. And so I didn't know how to advocate for myself. And I didn't know that I could say no to taking the birth control pill, or I could say no to certain treatments that they wanted to do to me. I just thought that that's what you have to do with endo. But there's a lot of options because all of our bodies are so different. So I think understanding the symptoms and then being able to advocate for yourself is just what I want everyone to learn to do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We have some questions for you, but we'll take them after. I will ask Priya to join us. Priya, you can unmute yourself.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And thank you so much, Jessica. And it's really beautiful because I'm here in Paris. I have Jessica in the US sharing her story and sharing her, I mean, this book, I mean, we will need to have another conversation on the book, but I just feel that it's a great toolkit that so many people wish that they could have. So I want to think of how we can amplify this book and spread it to as many people as possible. And we have Priya that is joining us from the Cycle India, who is based in India, as it says. And Priya is doing a phenomenal work with her organization, the Cycle India. So I would love, Priya, to hear more about yourself. If you can tell us more about what you're doing and what is the Cycle India and
Sure.
your work with endometriosis.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Jessica. I mean, that was really, I mean, of course, I had my camera off, but I was also tearing up hearing you speak, because we work so closely with people who are going through this that everything that you said was resonating so much within me. So the cycle in India, we are still sanitation first, but getting to be the cycle as soon as we can. But so we have been kind of working in sustainable wash for almost, close to 15 years now. But our actual work in menstrual health started in 2019 when, we were initially, addressing solid waste management and addressing menstrual waste in schools. That's when we went to schools and started talking to them about reusable pads. And we thought merely giving menstrual products is not adequate, because the girls have now not had an opportunity to kind of even understand what is periods and what happens to them and why do periods happen and all of that. So then we thought it was not just adequate to kind of teach this to the girls, because even the parents, the mother, the family, the father, the brother, everybody around them, the teachers, they all needed this information in order to create a facilitative environment for girls in schools, so that girls continue to remain in the education stream. They were not kind of bogged down by bad toilets, no place to dispose their sanitary pads, no quality menstrual products that they had access about. And of course, not having the knowledge and going by all myths and taboos and getting frightened and not having someone to discuss this with. So when we went there and we started talking to the girls, to the boys, to the teachers, to the parents, that's when we came to know, there is very little information that is reliable and that's communicated at the right time to these people about menstruation itself, and B, how little they know about menstrual disorders. In India, culturally, the challenge is that unless and until a woman is married and is on her way to have a baby, it's a cultural taboo to go and visit a gynecologist. So supposing there was a girl who had PCOD, or there a woman who had endo, or there could be another woman who had I don't know, adenomyosis, dysmenorrhea, whatever it might be, if that person is not married or if that person was not pregnant, going and visiting a gynecologist is itself something that will be frowned upon by the community and more importantly by their own families. Like people would say, what would people speak? And how can you go to a gynecologist? People would think that you're having an abortion. People would think that you're pregnant before marriage. The whole range of things. So girls are told they have to endure. You are in pain, you have to endure. Pain is so much a part of being a woman. So that's something that you have to go through. So already for women, if you see, health-seeking behavior is not a priority. At least in India, if a man is sick, that entire family is around that man, be it the son, be it the father, be it the husband, taking care of them, getting the medical attention, making sure they're comfortable, getting the nutrition, the rest, the whole works. Whereas if a woman is not well, the woman is not going to be talking about it till such time that it becomes critical or chronic, or somebody else notices and asks them, you seem to be in discomfort, what is wrong with you? Because culturally they think that, I have to put my needs behind the needs of my family. And that makes things more complicated, because by the time they go to get medical attention, what could have been a simple problem has become very complicated or more chronic, right? So here in the case of any menstrual disorder, and more particularly in the case of endo, when they don't even know what they are going through, who would they go to and how would they get diagnosed? In India, the public health system does not have obstetrics as a part of it. Only maternal and child health is covered under Social Security and in the government scheme. So a woman would go to a government health center only if she were pregnant, or she would go there to have a hysterectomy. These are the only two things that are covered under government insurance and are like women would get free treatment. So if at all she has a problem, and if she's like bleeding buckets, if she's in severe pain that she can't get up, if she's fainting, if she's kind of, can't even pass motion, can't even pass urine, I'm not having my periods, as Jessica was mentioning it, like even, doing normal things, just moving my body and getting out of bed. If I can't do it, first of all, I don't know who I have to go to. I don't have the money to go and visit a private doctor. Even if I borrowed, I pledged my jewelry, or even whatever, I did whatever I can to get myself out of my bed and to a doctor. There's no guarantee that the doctor will know what is wrong with me. Because endometriosis is still something that only doctors who are looking at infertility issues are treating. And so only when a woman goes there, I mean, it's not necessary that a person living with endometriosis has to have, problems having babies. They could have had children as well, but they would only be diagnosed with endo if they were not able to conceive naturally. And then finally the family decided they were going to go to a doctor and find out what was wrong with them. That's when the doctor, if the doctor is good enough, would tell them that they have endo. And then laparoscopy is still the only way that, it would be diagnosed, confirmed, and then, treated. So without any insurance, without any private insurance also not covering endo, it would mean that the family would just say, we don't have the money to handle this. Yeah. Just go and get a hysterectomy done.
And what do you do at the cycle in India? Like, what are the...
Yes. So what we do in the cycle in India is, first of all, we are focusing on vulnerable women. I mean, if a woman is living in an urban area, if a woman has the financial resources, the knowledge, and the information to whom to approach, then it will be easier for them to at least go and get themselves diagnosed. But what if I'm living in a tribal area, I'm like living on, daily wages, I'm a migrant laborer, I'm a, gypsy or something like that, where I don't even have access to health services. So we are focusing on them, and we are carrying out the first ever research study among vulnerable groups in India, particularly in South India. North and South are completely in the dark as far as endo is concerned. The two organizations that are working in endometriosis in India are only in the West and the East. And they are again working with women who are going to corporate hospitals because they are not able to conceive naturally. not with the vulnerable communities. So the cycle in India is carrying out the first ever study in India with vulnerable populations in about 8,000 women to find out the prevalence of menstrual disorders and particularly the prevalence of endometriosis. And we hope that the study will be completed in a month or so. We hope the data will give us enough evidence for us to connect with medical doctors who are willing to subsidize, diagnosis and management for these vulnerable women. Parallelly, we hope to approach the government and advocate with them to bring endometriosis and other menstrual disorders under the public health system, because by definition, public health system will only pay for those ailments where people have a risk of dying. To me, to live a life that is not worthy of living and dying are both the same. That's what we want to kind of put up there for the decision makers and the administrator to understand and agree. And many times I feel if men had endometriosis, there would have been a cure that would have been found at least 25 years ago. And I don't mean this as a feminist. I mean it genuinely, because unfortunately, most of the decision makers are men, and this is something that they don't understand. They don't want to get into. They don't even want to go near.
And what you're showing is very similar in some ways to West Africa, to Guinea, and it's crazy because I always have that paradox sometimes. I'm in France, I have access to amazing healthcare, and even being a person, in the West having access to amazing healthcare, I'm still struggling so much. So I'm always thinking the gap, when you just put yourself out of the bubble and try to think of the gap and of a young girl or a young woman in a rural area somewhere in India or in Africa or, in Guinea, all the struggle you have to go through just to be seen within your own symptoms. I feel like it's overwhelming. I actually sometimes don't want to think about it because, it's always between what you are going through and everything's happening in the world. And at the same time, I believe that we need to amplify voices. We need to amplify Know Your Endo. We need to amplify voices like the cycle in India. And I would love to hear if you could share with us a story of, of someone that, that touched your heart and how we can also support you. It would be amazing to know for every person in this call to, even if I will be sharing all the resources after, but to know how we could support you in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why we decided to do this in India was what happened during the lockdown, the COVID lockdowns, was when there was abject period poverty. So my colleague Nisha and I, with the support from the cycle in the UK, were going out to these remote areas, rural areas where people had absolutely lost their livelihood. And it meant that they did not even have the money to purchase menstrual products. Some of the areas that we visited were 8 kilometers, 9 kilometers down the slopes in the hills, where people had to actually walk up those kilometers in the elephant corridor to come up and even buy a paracetamol if they had a headache or a fever. So when we were doing this, we were in the southern part of Tamil Nadu, where, in one particular district, we found that there had been a study conducted with about 52 women who had endometriosis, and out of these 52 women, 27 of them had already had a hysterectomy, and these 27 women were under the age of 30 years. And what had happened is, because they were uneducated, the husbands were uneducated, so the men had assumed that just because the woman's uterus was removed, she was no longer fit for marital life, and they had deserted the women. So this NGO that we kind of, partnered with to kind of look at the study and identify these women for us, they said that the women had been abandoned. Some of them had children, many of them did not have children. The families, the parental families did not have the economic capacity to support these women. The husband's family did not want to take them. Their morale was very, very low. Their confidence was low. Their health was low. Nutrition was low. Everything was low, and they were just on the streets trying to fend for themselves. And that is when we thought that, if this can happen purely because of lack of awareness, lack of knowledge, and exploitation by corporate hospitals. I mean, probably the hospitals thought the easiest way to put these women out of misery was for them to have a hysterectomy, because A, it is a one-time thing and it is not going to cost so much because they can go under insurance. And B is that they weren't aware of any other option, right? So which is when we decided that we have to raise awareness among women, irrespective of whether they had the condition or not, so that at least for early detection, we could connect them with the relevant medical resources. We could make sure that we kind of handheld them. Of course, they will make their own medical choices. We don't intend to, kind of put them to one hospital or one doctor. That's a choice that they are free to make, but at least to kind of handhold them through the process of detection and then further support. So which is, a study that we are kind of, we were referencing when we were doing the study, said that 10% of women in India are people living with endometriosis. Out of that 10%, 50% are women who have been diagnosed when they went for fertility issues. So that means they would have waited till they were like 30, 35, I don't know, 38, whatever, right? Which means probably 10 years, 15 years of their life, they would have slowly kind of, lived with pain, increasing lack of mobility. And as Jessica was saying, I don't know if I'll go to work today. I don't know if I'll be able to attend a party today. I don't know if I'll go to a wedding today. Whatever it might be, it's that constant worry, constant pain, constantly feeling that like a lesser being. That's what has happened to every single woman who's at least been lucky to be identified. So as Cycle in India, what we need are two things. One is we are a small voice right now because we are the only organization that's working with vulnerable women in this issue. And we are the only organization in South India that's working in this issue, period. So definitely we need more voices from, international friends such as yourselves to kind of magnify our voice and be heard more loudly in country and across countries, so that we are able to kind of, reach out to more women, spread awareness, put this on the national agenda. And of course, we need money to do this. So, any donations that come in through the Cycle in the UK or the Cycle in India, that's definitely going to strengthen our arm. And of course, loads and loads of advice. As I said, I'm looking forward to reading Jessica's book, which, people keep asking so many questions. What should I eat? Should I do this? Should I do that? And she really kind of, hit the nail on the head when she said, like, I don't even know what size I actually wear on a normal basis, right? Those are not questions that normal women grapple with, but this is something that it's so simple, but it's not a given for a person with endo. So how do we then tell these people it's okay to be like this, but you're not going to be suffering alone all by yourself. We are all with you. Yeah. And ultimately, we have to fight this battle till probably the men get endo or they recognize about what this is all about.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Priya. It was really, eye-opening to hear your journey. We have 10 minutes left, so I would love to open this space for questions. I will stop the recording this way. If you want to unmute yourself, it will be